live telecasting, live streaming the news articles of 20th May 2022, and I am your educator Prithviraj Singh. So let us begin with the good news. On the front page of the Hindu, Nikhat Zareen has won the World Boxing Women Championship. She has won the gold medal and she has bet a Thailand's competitor Jutamas Jitpong. So it's a very big achievement, students. Boxer Nikhat Zareen, Indian boxer Nikhat Zareen has won gold medal at World Women Boxing Championship, and it was being held at Istanbul on Thursday. Right, a very big achievement, gold medal coming to India, and I strongly expect a question on this. Boxer Nikhat Zareen. So she has won the gold medal in 52 kg World Women Boxing Championship, and in this sense she has become the 5th Indian women boxer to be crowned the world champion. Right. In this sense, there were 4 Indian women champions, 4 Indian women athletes who won the gold medal, and she was the 5th one. So in all, she became the 5th Indian women boxer to be crowned world champion. Very big achievement. So this is also a second fact, and it is India's only second victory over the Thai after the win at the Thailand Open in 2019. That means over Thailand it has been India's only second victory. She has also won 2 golds at the Strandzha Memorial Tournament. Now these are the other 4 winners, the gold medalist from India. Mary Kom. Now Mary Kom won the gold medal for the World Women Boxing Championship in the year 2002, 5, 2006, 2008, 10 and 18. So she has won 6 gold medals. The second gold medalist was in the year 2006, Sarita Devi. The third is Jenny RL, and 4th was Lekha Casey. Right. So these were the 4 gold medalists, or the champions, world champions, Indian world champions, and Nikhat Zareen has become the 5th Indian women boxer to be crowned with the gold medal at World Boxing Women Championship in 52 kg flyweight. Very important news article, and in this sense the Indian women has so far won total 10 gold medals at World Women's Boxing Championship. So a very important news article from the world of sports, Nikhat Zareen, and I strongly expect a question on this. Right, so do remember this, Nikhat Zareen from India. Moving to the next news article, Supreme Court says that both the center and the state are to make or can make laws over GST. That means the laws over GST is not the exclusive domain of the center or the parliament, but both the center as well as the state assemblies can make laws over the GST. So in this sense, the Supreme Court has, by this judgment, has ensured cooperative federalism in India by actually strengthening fiscal federalism. Right. So what is federalism? Federalism is nothing but the vertical distribution of powers between the center and the state. When I say the vertical distribution of powers, what kind of powers we are talking about? We are talking about executive powers, the legislative powers, and the financial powers. Right. So when I say that India is a federal country, I mean that the powers are being distributed between center and the state. What powers? Executive powers, legislative, that means law making powers, law implementation powers, and financial powers. Correct. So we know that there were some taxes which were the state subjects. For example, VAT. There were some taxes which were of the which were into the union list, like your excise duty, CST. But now we know that GST was the biggest indirect tax reform in India, which came in the year 2017 by 101st Constitutional Amendment Act, and it actually subsumed all the indirect taxes and it became GST. Correct. So the cascading effect of taxation, which was actually earlier happening before the GST era, was being eliminated. That means tax on tax, that was being eliminated, and now the the final price of the product was lessened because of the input tax credit and the elimination of the cascading effect of taxation, right? So biggest indirect tax reform, GST, Goods and Service Tax Act. So it subsumed all the indirect taxes except, I mean, there are still many indirect taxes which are outside the purview of GST, like customs duty, then tax over petroleum, over liquor, over aviation turbine fuel, so on and so forth, petroleum, right? So in Gujarat High Court ruling, the court has said that government can't levy IGST on ocean freight imports. When I say government here, I mean central government. The author is actually meaning central government. So the central government can't levy IGST, integrated goods and service tax, on ocean freight imports. So guys, कुछ terms होती है IGST. I just explain. IGST means any transaction between the two states. That means any interstate transaction. For example, let's say a commodity is being sold from Rajasthan into Gujarat. A commodity being sold from Rajasthan to Gujarat, right? So what would be applicable? Earlier it was CST, but now it is called as integrated goods and service tax. It is being collected by the center and distributed equally. That means 50 is to 50 between the center and the state, right? So that means Rajasthan government would be actually accruing the revenue from the IGST, correct? So IGST is for the integrated goods and service tax, correct? That means interstate transactions. Now Supreme Court has clearly said that the center and the state, they both have coterminous powers, equal powers with regard to GST related laws. That means they both can make laws over the goods and service tax, and the recommendations of the GST Council are not binding, right? They are of recommendatory nature, and any recommendation of the GST Council to actually deliberate over the GST rates is non-recommendatory. It is not binding. Center cannot levy IGST on ocean freight from Indian importers, right? That means the central government cannot levy the IGST on ocean freight from Indian importers. पहले central government इसको वो impose करती थी, क्योंकि ऐसा माना जा रहा था कि only central government can impose IGST, but अब ये clear हो गया है कि central government and state government, they both have the law making powers over the IGST. So center is not the whole sole authority to levy IGST on the ocean freight from Indian importers. जो इंडियन इंपोर्टर्स थे जहाँ से ओशन फ्रेट आता था, उसके ऊपर जो GST लगता था, IGST लगता था, उसके ऊपर अब सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट डिसाइड नहीं करेगी. सो इन दिस सेंस इट इज़ अ वेरी बिग रिलीफ फॉर द गुड्स इंपोर्टर्स in the sense that they are now no longer liable to pay GST on ocean freight charges. पहले वो GST उनको देना पड़ता था when they were actually importing any commodity from a foreign country. ओशन फ्रेट चार्जेस के ऊपर उनको GST देना पड़ता था, पर अब नहीं देना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि अब ये सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट के डोमेन, एक्सक्लूसिव डोमेन में नहीं है. ये चीज़ सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने क्लैरिफाई कर दी है. बोथ द सेंटर एज वेल एज द स्टेट कैन मेक लॉज. तो इट इज़ अ वेरी बिग रिलीफ फॉर द importers. Now even article 246A is there mentioned in the act. As we know today that GST is an act, right? And article 246A says that it gives the states power to make laws with respect to the GST, right? That means 246A clearly gives powers to the state to make laws with respect to GST, right? So यहाँ से it is very much clear, it is aptly clear that the states can make laws with respect to GST. Very important article, students, and it was inserted by 101st Constitutional Amendment Act. ये चीज़ बिल्कुल ध्यान में रखिए, क्योंकि 101st Amendment Act was your GST Act, correct? So 101st Amendment Act was your GST Act, and it inserted article 246A, which says that the states has the power to make laws विद रिस्पेक्ट टू जीएसटी। इसका मतलब सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट के पास एक्सक्लूसिव पावर्स नहीं है जीएसटी को लेके। सेकंड, आर्टिकल 279A in constituting the GST Council, it envisions that neither the center nor the states are actually dependent on each other. That means the center and the states are not dependent on each other. They can make laws in their own way. They are autonomous, they are free, they are independent from each other, and the law of the center should not hinder the states, in the legislative process. So this also ensures fiscal federalism in India. Right. So in this sense, the center and the state, they are autonomous, they are independent, and even competing units while making the GST laws, and democracy and federalism are the interdependent terms. So a very big move by the Supreme Court, and even the Kerala finance minister is saying that the center had been arbitrarily imposing its decisions on states. That means whatever rate that is being decided by the center, it is being dumped over the states, and we hope that this verdict would pave the way for states to protect their rights. So an important article, and I expect a question on this. So here is a comparative chart between CGST, SGST, IGST. As you all know that earlier, which was your VAT, right? Today it is called as GST, and it is being collected by the central government and is being distributed equally between the state and the center in 50-50 proportion. The center's part is called a CGST. Let's say for example, if the tax is, let's say the price was 100 rupees, tax was 10%, so it would become, the final price would become 110, correct? So 55 rupees would go to the center and 55 rupees would go to the state. That means 50-50, correct? CGST and the SGST. So CGST, which authority is benefited? The central government, and the priority of the tax credit use is CGST, and who is it collected by? The central government. Transactions which are applicable within a single state, that means intra-state. And for SGST, who collects? The state government, and the authority which is benefited is the state government, right? So the half would go to the state and the remaining half would go to the center. Now coming to the IGST, Integrated Goods and Service Tax. As we know that any interstate transaction, for example, transaction between Rajasthan and Gujarat or Rajasthan and Punjab, is being charged at IGST between two different states, or a state and a UT, that is interstate, correct? So this is the comparative chart, UGST, SGST and IGST. Well, IGST is a tax under the GST regime that is applied on interstate, that means between two states, as I just mentioned, supply of goods and or services, as well as on imports and exports. तो केवल इंटरस्टेट के ऊपर ही ये लेवी नहीं होता है, इसके अलावा इंपोर्ट्स एंड एक्सपोर्ट्स के ऊपर भी IGST is levied. Under IGST, the body responsible for collecting the taxes is central government. However, whatever tax that is being collected by the central government is equally distributed between the state and the center in 50-50 proportion, right? Equally distributed, correct? So it would be collected by the central government, but it would be equally distributed between the state and the central government. For example, let's say in this case, a trader from West Bengal has sold the goods to a customer in Karnataka, right? So West Bengal se goods are being sold into Karnataka, and the price of the goods was 5,000 rupees. And the IGST, तो इस केस में क्या होगा? Interstate transactions हो रहा है, interstate transaction में कौन सा टैक्स लगेगा? IGST, correct? So IGST would be applicable as the transaction is an interstate transaction, and if the rate of GST charge on the goods is 18%, अगर लेट्स से 5000 के ऊपर अगर 18% GST है तो टोटल फाइनल प्राइस क्या हो जाएगा? 18% ऑफ 5000 इज 900 रुपीज़. सो रुपीज़ 5900 वुड बी द फाइनल वैल्यू फॉर द गुड्स, राइट. और ये जो टैक्स कलेक्ट हुआ है रुपीज़ 900, इसका डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन इक्वल होगा बिटवीन द सेंटर and the state. That means 450 would go to the center and remaining 450 would go to the state, right. Previous example के अंदर मैंने आपको बताया था 100 रुपीज़ के ऊपर अगर लेट्स से 10% अगर टैक्सेशन रेट है तो 110 हो गए. उसमें मैंने इसको 55 कर दिया था, बट इसका एक्चुअली जो टैक्स कितना हुआ, टैक्स इज ₹10, और ₹10 को अगर मैं डिवाइड करूँगा तो टैक्स जो है वो उसका बाइफर्केशन होगा, वो जाएगा सेंटर के पास आधा और आधा स्टेट के पास. तो 5 रुपीज़ वुड गो टू द स्टेट एंड रिमेनिंग 5 वुड गो टू द सेंटर, राइट. सो टैक्स का बाइफर्केशन होता है, करेक्ट. सो दिस इज द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ IGST. अब इसके अंदर क्लियरली सुप्रीम कोर्ट हैज सेड दैट द सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट डू नॉट हैव एक्सक्लूसिव पावर्स ओवर IGST, right. So we have discussed article 246A, 279A. Now moving to the next news article. Now, well, GST we all know is a destination based tax. It came into being by 101st Amendment Act, one nation one tax. The GST Council was there to actually deliberate about the tax rates or the tax slabs. As a amendment bill, it was 122nd constitutional amendment bill. GST Council. अब यहाँ पे we have discussed 279A was GST Council. So they can always ask you that GST Council is being formed under which article of the Constitution. So it is Article 279A, and it consists of it is formed by the President, and it has the Finance Minister as the chairman, and the ministers nominated by the state government as its members. Now the council is devised in such a way that the center will have 1/3 voting power. मतलब कि 33.33% और 1/3 वोटिंग पावर सेंटर के पास है, और रिमेनिंग 2/3 मतलब ज़्यादा प्रोपोर्शन जो है वो स्टेट के पास है. एंड डिसीजंस आर ऑलवेज टेकन बाय 3/4 मेजॉरिटी, दैट मीन्स 75%. According to GST rules which are clear on the matter, IGST has to be shared between the center and the state in the ratio of 50:50. उसके अलावा 15th फाइनेंस कमीशन की जो रिपोर्ट आई थी जिसके चेयरमैन थे श्री NK सिंह, in that report also it was being said that the union government has to distribute 42% of their tax kitty to the states, right. तो ये इसके अलावा है, जो IGST के अलावा 42% जो है they have to share with the states. So definitely it may strain the center and the state relations, right. So an important article. Moving to the next news article on the screen. Yesterday also, students, we did discussed about ethanol blending. Today it has been further clarified and they more elaborated it. Well, the government is pushing its green energy target. It is moving ahead with its green policy, and in the recently held conference of parties at Glasgow, Scotland, even India declared that they have declared that 500 gigawatt of renewable energy shall be achieved by the year 2030. Now, in order to do so, we have to limit the greenhouse gas emissions, and that can be done by blending of petrol, and that is called as ethanol blending, right? Now, ethanol is a you can say it is a biofuel, and it is being extracted from the molasses of sugarcane. जो बच जाता है sugarcane का part उसको molasses कहते हैं, and that is then being blended into the petrol so that it would have less effects, adverse impact on the environment. That is called as ethanol blending of petrol. Now हमने discuss किया था कि the government has approved, the union cabinet has approved the national policy on biofuels 2018. अब नेशनल पॉलिसी ऑन बायोफ्यूल्स 2018 के अंदर उन्होंने दे हैव एडवांस द टाइमलाइन फ्रॉम 2030 to 2025, right. So we discussed this yesterday. From 2030 they have reduced it to 2025, and the target that has to be achieved is 20% ethanol blending, EB. right? Earlier it was 10%, but now they have declared that it is 20% ethanol blending, right? So a beautiful pictorial representation. From maize also you can extract ethanol. You can also extract ethanol from sugarcane, and it can be blended in petrol so that it would have less adverse impacts on the environment. Now, in the amended National Policy on the Biofuel 2018 as approved by the Union Cabinet, the ethanol would be blended at the rate 20%. That means 20% would be ethanol blending, and the target is being advanced to 2025. Now, ethanol is also in chemical terms, it is also in its chemical name is ethyl alcohol, and it is a hydrocarbon, and it when it is being burned, it generates heat, and this heat further powers engines, right? तो ethyl alcohol को जब burn किया जाता है तो it actually releases heat, and this heat powers the engines, which actually helps in the automobile functioning. Now, to do so, India would need to bring 30,000 additional square kilometer of land to come under maize cultivation. Now, interesting article, and I expect a question on this. But it takes much more ethanol to power a vehicle's engine than petrol. That means मैंने बताया था कि इथेनॉल को बर्न करने के ऊपर जो हीट जनरेट होती है उससे इंजन को पावर मिलती है, राइट? बट इट टेक्स मच मोर एथेनॉल, ज़्यादा एथेनॉल लगता है टू पावर अ व्हीकल्स इंजन देन कंपेयर टू पेट्रोल. पेट्रोल बर्न जब होता है तो उसमें ज़्यादा जो है इथेनॉल, उससे ज़्यादा क्वांटिटी में इथेनॉल लगेगा इन ऑर्डर टू पावर द इंजन. It also leaves residual byproducts that can actually corrode and damage the vehicles. Right? अब जब तक 10% की जो पॉलिसी थी एथनॉल ब्लेंडिंग की, तब तक तो it was working well and there was no hardware changes or tuning of the engines to suit the ethanol blending. But when we have increased it to 20%, then definitely the mechanical structure of the engines is also to be changed, because of the reason that it would corrode and damage the vehicle. In this way, the vehicles need to be tuned accordingly. Now, ethanol can be sourced from sugarcane, molasses, and maize, which, given India's agricultural base, can substantially reduce India's dependence on petroleum. अभी इंडिया डेफिनेटली हमारा सारा जो पेट्रोलियम है वो बाहर से ही भी इम्पोर्ट, तो when ethanol blending would be there, so we can produce the biofuel from maize or sugarcane, तो अपना जो डिपेंडेंस है पेट्रोलियम प्रोडक्ट्स के ऊपर वो कम हो जाएगा. So we would be saving around 30,000 crore rupees, right? So it has huge benefits. So देखिए ये so this was your, and India also launched EBP or ethanol blended petrol policy in the year 2002, which says that there must be 5% ethanol blending. उसके बाद in 2015 the government actually came up with E5. E5 is 5% ethanol with 95% gasoline petrol. Then EIO fuel, that means EIO is actually, it's not EIO, it is E10. E10 means 10% ethanol blending. But now we have set to E20. E20 is 20% blending of ethanol. और अभी तो government is also deliberate working over 85% blending or 100% fuel, और ethanol blended diesels की बात भी हो रही है, right? So center has also targeted 5% blending of biodiesel with diesel by the year 2030, right? So in this sense ये important article है. और मोलासेस बेस्ड डिस्टिलरीज से हमको जो शुगर केन का जो बाई प्रोडक्ट है मोलासेस, देन ग्रेन बेस्ड डिस्टिलरीज से भी एथनॉल मिलता है, मतलब मेज वाली जो द थिंग दैट वी डिस्कस. डेफिनेटली मॉडिफिकेशंस अगर आप इंजन को करोगे, क्योंकि मैंने बताया इथनॉल वुड करोड द इंजन, सो यू हैव टू मॉडिफाई द इंजन, यू हैव टू ट्यून इट, यू हैव टू चेंज द हार्डवेयर स्ट्रक्चर, बट देन it would result into the loss in efficiency due to the blended fuel. But then it can be done so by the government, giving the tax incentives on E10 and E20 fuel may be considered. So government has to give tax incentives so that their 20% ethanol blending target is being properly met. Even there are many countries abroad. Brazil के अंदर there is 100% ethanol vehicles, right? That means the vehicles that run completely or entirely on ethanol. वहाँ पे ये जो टेक्नोलॉजी यूज होती है उसको कहा जाता है, the technology is called as flex fuel engine technology. I repeat, it is flex fuel engine technology, FFE. Flex fuel engine technology ब्राज़ील के अंदर यूज होती है and comprises nearly 80% of the total number of new vehicles sold in the year 2019 in Brazil. तो वहाँ पे completely they are being run by ethanol. The US and Brazil makes up 92 billion liters or 85% of the global share of ethanol, followed by European Union, China, India, Canada and Thailand. Right. तो US और ब्राज़ील में सबसे ज़्यादा इथेनॉल प्रोड्यूस होता है, एंड बिकॉज इथेनॉल बर्न्स मोर कम्प्लीटली दैन पेट्रोल, वो ज़्यादा अच्छे से बर्न होता है दैन कंपेयर टू पेट्रोल. इट अवॉइड्स एमिशंस सच एज कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड. कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड कम हो जाती है, विच इज़ अगेन अ ग्रीन हाउस गैस. And however there are no reductions in the nitrous oxide, one of the major environmental pollutant. तो ये चीज़ आप ध्यान रखिए कि इथेनॉल ब्लेंडिंग से कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड तो कम हो जाएगी, जो कि अगेन इट्स अ ग्रीन हाउस गैस, बट देन देयर इज नो रिडक्शन इन द नाइट्रस ऑक्साइड, राइट? देयर इज नो रिडक्शन इन द नाइट्रस ऑक्साइड, and this is one of the major environmental pollutants. Now it will need to bring in 30,000 additional square kilometer of land to come under the maize cultivation. For India, sugarcane is the cheapest source of ethanol. On average, a ton of sugarcane can produce 100 kg of sugar and 70 liters of ethanol. Right. So some important aspects we learned in this slide about nitrous oxide, about ethanol blending, and how the engine modifications would work. So this is being explained here. So now moving to the next news article. Well, Archaeological Survey of India have barred the visit to Aurangzeb's tomb at Aurangabad in Maharashtra. Now, there has been threats by Raj Thackeray led MNS or Maharashtra Navnirman Sena to destroy Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb's tomb. Aurangzeb का tomb है वहाँ पे in Maharashtra's Aurangabad district. और आर्कियोलॉजिकल सर्वे ऑफ इंडिया ने शट कर दिया है उसको, एंड दे हैव अपॉइंटेड द सिक्योरिटी टू प्रोटेक्ट द टॉम्ब. नाउ अ बिट अबाउट औरंगजेब. नाउ औरंगजेब वाज डेफिनेटली मुगल एम्परर फ्रॉम 1657 till 1707. He also assumed the title of Alamgir, means the world conqueror, and his first 10 years of military campaigns were big success, but he suppressed many minor revolts, but he faced serious difficulties in the later part of his reign. Particularly the Jats and the Satnamis and also the Sikh community revolted against him because he had very harsh religious policy. He also imposed jizya. Jizya was a religious tax imposed on Hindus. However, jizya was being abolished by the Mughal emperors like Akbar, but then Aurangzeb instead imposed jizya or a religious tax or a pilgrimage tax on Hindus. He was influenced by Naqshbandi Sufi order, and he also his own son, his Prince Akbar, rebelled against his father Aurangzeb. In this connection, the 9th Guru of Sikh religion, Sikh Guru Tegh Bahadur, was being beheaded, was being executed by Aurangzeb. So as far as his Deccan policy is concerned, he was motivated by the policy of containing the growing influence of Marathas. So he was very much successful in containing the growing influence of Marathas. Plus, he also had the rebellious attitude of the Shia kingdoms of Deccan like Golconda and Bijapur, and were also being curtailed, and to curtail the rebellious activities of his son Prince Akbar. Right. So in this sense, Aurangzeb came to Deccan in 1682 and remained in the Deccan till his death in 1707. Now he also annexed Golconda Fort, which was also is called as today Nizam Fort in Hyderabad, Bijapur, and his Deccan policy was actually a big, he was completely exhausted in his Deccan agenda, and also is being said that his Deccan agenda is also being said to be as Deccan ulcer. The authors say that Deccan ulcer ruined Aurangzeb. Well, Archaeological Survey of India works under the Ministry of Culture, and it was founded in the year 1861 by a British officer, Alexander Cunningham. Right. Alexander Cunningham was the first Director General of Archaeological Survey of India, also called as Father of Indian Archaeology. Alexander Cunningham, and ASI or Archaeological Survey of India works under the Ministry of Culture. Moving to the next news articles, discussing the editorial section. Now guys, International Biodiversity Day is approaching, and it is being celebrated every year on 22nd May. So on 22nd May every year the world celebrates International Biodiversity Day. Now, in the preparation to the celebration, this article actually surfaced in the Hindu today. It talks about the biodiversity and how the biodiversity reserves or bioreserves act as pockets, act as a ray of hope, in this polluted globe. So the main global drivers of biodiversity loss are definitely the climate change, invasive species, overexploitation of natural resources, pollution, and urbanization. Now, because of our collective excesses, the ecological carrying capacity, that means carrying capacity means the holding capacity of the planet Earth, has largely been exceeded. So it is actually a positive article, and rightly so. In 1971, UNESCO started the World Network of Biosphere Reserves to preserve the biosphere or the wildlife, flora and fauna. The UNESCO started in the year 1971 the World Network of Biosphere Reserves, and biosphere reserves are the places where human live with nature. That means they live in harmony with nature, right? So this is the concept of biosphere reserve. That means human beings would be living with the nature. So this is a model of sustainable development. It is an effective combination of sustainable development and nature conservation. Now the first biosphere reserve in South Asia, because South Asia has around 30 biosphere reserves. If I talk about India, in our country we have 18 biosphere reserves, and out of 18, 12 are being recognized as biosphere reserves, or are being recognized as into the World Network of Biosphere Reserves. There are 18 biosphere reserves. Out of 18, 12 are being recognized as included into the World Network of Biosphere Reserves by UNESCO. And the first biosphere reserve in South Asia was in Sri Lanka, and it was Hurulu Biosphere Reserve. So it was Hurulu Biosphere Reserve in Sri Lanka. So they may ask you the question, which among the following biosphere reserves was the first in Asia? So the answer would be Hurulu Biosphere Reserve, Sri Lanka, and it was being set up in the year 1977. Now if I talk about India, in India the first biosphere reserve which was designated by UNESCO in the World Network was by UNESCO was the Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve. Now, today there are 12 biosphere reserves which are into the world network of biosphere reserves, and the latest one is Panna Biosphere Reserve in the state of Madhya Pradesh, and it has been entered recently. It has been added into the list of world network of biosphere reserve in the year 2020, right? So very, very important. They may ask question on this. Panna Tiger Reserve, it's also a tiger reserve, and you would be knowing that it's in Madhya Pradesh. Now, even the Kanchenjunga Biosphere Reserve was established in the year 2018, is also a good model of those biosphere reserves which are in the higher altitudes. Then you have many biosphere reserves at coral reefs and the mangrove forest, like Gulf of Mannar. Then Maldives are recognized as the lowest lying country in the world, with a mere elevation of 1.5 meters above the high tide mark. See, UNESCO Biosphere Reserve have all developed science-based management plans. It finds solutions to climate resilience, and all the Biosphere Reserve students are internationally recognized sites on land, coast or in oceans. तो ये चीज़ क्लियर होनी चाहिए कि Biosphere Reserves are not limited to land, they can be at coast, they also can be at oceans. Although they are suffering from lack of financial resources, lack of technical know-how, and till date there has been no biosphere reserve in Bangladesh, Bhutan and Nepal. तो अभी तक बांग्लादेश, भूटान, नेपाल में biosphere reserve नहीं है. So it is on the top priority list of UNESCO, right? So, and on May 22, the world would be celebrating International Day of Biodiversity, biological diversity, right? So the first takeaway, May 22, International Day of Biological Diversity. Second is, our neighbor Bhutan, Bangladesh and Nepal do not have any biosphere reserve. The third fact is, the third fact is the higher altitude biological reserves, biodiversity reserves are Kanchenjunga. There are 18 biodiversity reserves in India. Out of 18, 12 are being recognized into the world network of biosphere reserves. In Asia, the first biosphere reserve was Horulu Biosphere Reserve, right? So this is what has been mentioned here. Now in the biosphere reserve, as you can see on the screen, the central area is called as the core zone. The dark green shade that you see is the core zone, and in this zone, which is at the center of the forest, no human activity is allowed. No human access or no human activity is allowed, although some research activities can take place with permission from the government, but no human activity is allowed here. Now, as I said, that biodiversity reserves are the beautiful example of the close harmony between human and the nature. So therefore, in buffer zone, tourism is allowed, and even grazing of animals which are not endangered, which are not into the endangered list, is being allowed, right? So in the buffer zone, tourism and grazing of animals is allowed. As far as the outer zone is concerned, which is the transition zone. Now the transition zone allows the human settlements and the crop cultivation, right? So the transition zone is a zone which is of transitory nature. That means the outer world is connected to the biosphere reserve through the transition zone, and here you would find human settlements. So you can see these are the human settlements, and even the crop cultivation is allowed, correct? तो अब ये चीज़ क्लियर हो जाएगी कि कोर जोन में there is no human activity allowed. In buffer zone, tourism with permission, with pass. For example, when you go to Ranthambore National Park, you have to take the permission, you have to take the pass from the government. So that is buffer zone. Core zone में नहीं जाने दिया जाता है वहाँ पे भी. और transition zone allows human settlement and the crop cultivation, right? So I hope it is clear. And the core zone is being protected by Wildlife Protection Act of the year 1972, right? So this is there, the buffer zone that we already discussed, and the transition zone. Now guys, this is the list of 12 biosphere reserves out of 18 which are recognized by the World Network of Biosphere Reserves. First was Nilgiri, and the latest one is Panna. So they may ask you in the examination that which one is the latest addition in the list of World Network of Biosphere Reserve in India. So Panna in the year 2020. The first was Nilgiri, and this is the list. The Gulf of Mannar. So here you have the Gulf of Mannar. Then Sundarban Delta, the Ganga Delta. Nanda Devi is in Uttarakhand. Nokrek is again in Meghalaya. Pachmadi is in Madhya Pradesh. Simlipal is in Odisha. It is also tiger reserve. Amarkantak is in Madhya Pradesh. It is a place from where the Narmada river originates. Amarkantak. Then Great Nicobar Biodiversity Reserve. Agastya Malay Tiger Reserve in the south in Tamil Nadu. Then Kanchanjunga in Sikkim, and Panna again in MP, right? So just by heart this list, and this is a pictorial representation, and it would help you in understanding the topic, right? So guys, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the session. So stay tuned for the daily newspaper analysis videos. Do like, comment and share. Wish you all the best. Good day. Goodbye.